Hey, welcome to a new episode of the You Got the Wrong Dude podcast. I'm your host, Ron Jamin. Thank you very much for tuning in. This episode, going to be talking about Black Panther, Wakanda Forever. And I was hesitant about watching it because of the runtime and no Chadwick. But a lot of stuff to get into. And I'd love to hear from you. If you're listening on Anchor, you can leave a voice message. Otherwise, leave a comment elsewhere. I'll have links to all my socials in the description and other places you can listen to the podcast. So let's get right into it. Like I said, the runtime concerned me, 2 hours, 43 minutes. And I was actually really impressed because there's nothing I would cut out of the movie. There are quite a few pacing issues at times, but overall made really good use of it. And stay tuned through the credits also. Maybe like midway through or something, there's a scene you don't want to miss. I won't even spoil it here. But yeah, good use of the runtime. And it seems like, in retrospect, you could do that movie in 2 hours. But, again, the pacing, it's good, then it's not so good. So, but overall, this story, it was a good balance of everything. And with the intro, the opening, right away you're like, oh, this is it. They're going to address what happened to him, to Chadwick's T'Challa. And the scene just goes by so quick. This is what I talk about when I say that there are pacing issues. Some scenes like this really need to breathe. I figured the first half hour would be everyone dealing with his loss. And maybe have some cameos from the Avengers in that too. Not a lot of people at the funeral. But that, and they didn't disclose the illness that he had, which really upset me. I figured they'd come up with a clever way to send off his character. But throughout the film, it's kind of like when the world lost Superman. Whichever version, you'll have to watch the movies in that, but no, I'll spoil it. The Henry Cavill, you went to Man of Steel, and then Dawn of Justice, Batman versus Superman at the end, and even that, it's like he's back in the next movie in Justice League. Zack Snyder did a great job with his version, but the point being, you really felt that loss of Chadwick throughout the movie. However, I wish they would have told us what had happened to him. And when Shuri goes into the ancestor realm, I wish they deep-faked Chadwick, him sitting in that chair. Killmonger works. We know Michael B. Jordan, great actor in that. But that didn't really fit. They tried to do it like, oh, you didn't believe in this place. But I think audiences would have gone wild. But who knows what his family, what they okayed and didn't okay. But, so that intro scene should have been longer. More time to breathe. A lot of shot of characters just like, wait, what happened? He just died suddenly? Well, the soundtrack selections were okay throughout, but the music score was very good. Not as great a balance as in the original Black Panther. The music was kind of all over the place. And I like the variety, but you also want consistency. I'd say after 20 minutes, I was kind of worried. I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to watch the rest of this. But there's so much more movie to go through. And for me, the movie really picks up that conversation between Namor and Shuri. I love their chemistry, and you wonder, are they going to fall in love? What's going on? And I like it when, before the big conflict that leads to a war, and that's your hero and villain, or, whatever you'd call them, because it's all subjective, really, especially in this case. when they meet up and have a conversation, it's like, hey, this is what I want to do. Maybe I don't have an issue with you. We can work together. I want to protect my people. Maybe you're in my way. That conversation was so good. The guy who plays Namor, him and Shuri just did a stellar job in their performances. Really impressive. Because you can understand both sides of the conflict. And everything with the vibranium, I thought that was genius for this movie. Because it's like, it's not just in Wakanda. It could be all around the world, in the ocean. And you can understand where Namor's coming from. But when he says he wants to attack the land people, that's when it's like, ooh. So even in the end, when he yields, at the very end when he's talking to, I think it's Namora, I thought he was going to tell her, like, just stick with me. We're going to use them. We're going to betray them. But he seems to understand that Wakanda, they'll protect his secrets. But what's there to protect as far as secrets? They already know about the vibranium. They're going to keep exploring the oceans. Which I get will probably lead to Black Panther 3. But still, some of it was just a little too confusing. Like, you yield in that moment, but afterwards, I just thought that was a good opportunity for him to, maybe play both sides. I didn't care for any of the handheld shots. There were quite a few of them, and I didn't understand why. This movie, the shots themselves, everything going on is really beautiful at times. But the stuff with Everett Ross, some of those, it just kind of offset the whole visual quality of the film. And there's one shot, Shuri's talking to a character, it's right before the big battle, and the background looks horrible. Just terrible CGI. It's all out of focus. I don't understand that. Take a day and fix that. However, there are a lot of great shots in this movie. The CG, some of the fight scenes and the moves in that look too animated. But overall, I'd say just ditch the handheld cam, because the steady shots, even the zooms in that look so good. And, the handheld shots, they didn't ruin the movie or anything, but it just kind of took away, because it's hard to focus on something. When the camera's moving, it's like, wait, I'm supposed to look there now? Like whatever's in frame, and then it just goes up, down, side to side. And I'd say there's a fair amount of action for a movie almost 3 hours. There's nothing that I'd take out from the movie and watch on its own, which is unfortunate. But everything, it's more of like you watch this movie all the way through. There's nothing really to pick out from it, like, oh, did you see that? I can't believe that happened. And the first action scene, that one in the laboratory, I believe, again with the handheld camera work, it kind of ruined it for me. Kind of hard to see what's going on. But, the fight scene at the end between Black Panther and Namor, that was pretty good. And everything on the ship, and the bridge fight was good. So, too bad nothing stood out, but like I said, just watch the movie all the way through. Well, I'm curious what you think, because when we first heard that Chadwick isn't going to be replaced in the Black Panther movies, I thought they meant like there wouldn't be a Black Panther anymore. Now I understand, they're not going to replace him as T'Challa, which makes sense. But what did you think when Shuri took on the Black Panther role? Were you excited? Were you confused? Were you disappointed? And again, that credit scene you have to watch, because we are introduced to a new character, and it's like, are they going to take up the role one day? Is that why they were introduced to us? And I had no problem with Shuri taking on the role. She had a very, very good character arc, maybe the best in this movie. And it's funny because you go back and watch Black Panther, the original, Infinity War, and it's like she has no idea what's going to happen. The amount of responsibility and loss she's going to go through, very heartbreaking. But I like the suit and how she survived being stabbed through her stomach. I don't get that. Same thing with Iron Man in Infinity War. When he gets stabbed by Thanos and it goes right through him. Because I understand the suit regenerates. You see that, but like, how do they heal themselves so quickly? If somebody could explain that to me, because I'd be like, ooh. I'd be like, you win. And I was very pleased with the character of, is it Riri Ironheart? Because typically a character like that will just have a bad attitude throughout the movie. They're like, oh, I've been fighting my whole life. Nobody understands me. She actually had a great attitude. I was rooting for her. And she's a genius. One part I kind of question when Shuri was kind of recruiting her in her apartment. So she said she's 19, but I've been working on this thing for years. And it's like, now it's possible, but it's like, oh, wow. Like a genius. But that character, it was great because, again, some side characters, they're introduced and you're just not rooting for them. You end up with like a cyborg role where it's just like, are you pissed off all the time? Like, nobody's going to cheer for you. So, great job with that. It was great to see Everett Ross again. Okay role in this one, not a lot to do. And then Valentina, I didn't get the hair thing, that little purple area. But Julia Louis-Dreyfus did a great job in that role. Because at first you're like, I know this is Elaine, but wow, she's a really good actress. But I just wish they had more to do. But I guess they're setting it up for the next one. And of course, yeah, Shuri and Namor just stole the show. And because throughout you're like, maybe they could work together. They'll figure it out, right? Now, while everything eventually gets better and better, it comes together, the first Black Panther definitely has the rewatchability factor. The story, not that it's easier to follow, but it's just, again, with things like the music and the visuals, it's just a better balance of everything. And, of course, Andy Serkis, I mean, he blows it away. And Michael B. Jordan is Killmonger. I mean, those guys are just perfect in those roles. And in this one, it takes a while. Give it, 20 minutes. And it's really about that conversation between Shuri and Namor when Shuri's kidnapped. And, but yeah, just so many great shots, a lot of great music, good action. But Chadwick is definitely missed. I can't imagine, Ryan Coogler, the director, and the studio, how they must have felt. Because not knowing somebody's sick and then they die, it's kind of like, business aside, I can't imagine how heartbreaking and horrendous that feeling is. But Chadwick, I mean, he made that role. The Black Panther, he made the blueprint. I'm sure one day it's going to be rebooted. But he pretty much, set the blueprint. And did a great job. And, everybody was shocked when he'd passed. And it's just so unfortunate. I mean, you see him in Endgame, and it's like, I can't wait to see Black Panther 2. But, yeah, shout out to Chadwick. I mean, everybody misses him. Did a great job. Fantastic actor. Seemed like a really cool guy. And, yeah, Black Panther, Wakanda Forever. Check it out. It's streaming on Disney+. And it's a long movie, but I'm telling you, there's nothing I would cut out. And that's good for, over 2 hours. But that's going to do it for this episode. Leave a voice message on Anchor. Otherwise, a comment on socials. I'll have links to that in the description. And yeah, thanks for listening. I will see you next time on the You Got the Wrong Dude podcast. Wakanda forever!